morning. Welcome to the Napa Valley Wine Library's Winemakers Seminar, Toast to the Generations. And we have lots of representatives of generations here. We have an absolutely jam-packed program today. So before I get started, I want to thank particularly Diana Stockton, Jane Skeels, our new friend Katie Kennedy and her group who helped with all the publicity this year. All of the Angelina Mondavi for helping us put together the group of winemakers, all of the winemakers, and all of their product which they are donating, both their time and their wine. And now I'd like to introduce Alan Balick, who's going to be our MC for today. He's very, very knowledgeable in wine. He's been dedicated to promoting, distributing, writing about, educating about, etc. wine for most of his adult life. And has done this before for us and is a very good guider of time allotment, because we need that today. So without getting too fancy here,
Thank you, Carolyn. It's a real pleasure to be back here with the Napa Valley Wine Library. It's a great organization, and I love when I did the other seminar a couple of years ago on anything but Cabernet, or reds other than Cabernet, I should say. The energy level in the room was really great, and the willingness to experiment with different varietals and different taste pairings through the French Laundry at that time. It was really a great experience. What I'm going to be doing, I'll introduce each of the panel members, and we have the panels divided into three. The first is where the wine starts in the vineyard, so this is our vineyard team. The second panel will be where the vineyard grapes go into the winery, so that'll be our winery team, our winery panel. And then the third will be devoted to operations, sales, marketing, where the wine has to go after it comes from the vineyard into the winery, out to the store. So our first panel member that I want to introduce is Garrett Arnfeld. And Garrett's father, Bruce, produced his own wine, and the first Arnfeld release was a 2002 Cabernet, and followed by a Merlot in 2003. Garrett and his dad formed Arnfeld Vineyard Management Company, so that's their expertise in vineyard management, and currently operates or manages farms over 350 acres in the Napa Valley. In 2006, Garrett joined with friend Grant Long, and they formed G Wine Cellars to produce a Bordeaux-style blend. So Garrett, why don't you, well, I'll introduce all four of you, and then I'll go back to you, Garrett. Then next is Julie Nord. And Julie grew up in the Napa Valley, and after UC Davis, she majored in chemistry, music, and then went to Texas A&M, which I'm not a big fan of because of beating SC. Game never should happen. Anyway, her dad, Will Nord, is both a teacher and viticulturist and started the viticulture program at Napa Valley College. Julie joined the family's vineyard management company, Nord Coast Vineyard Management Service, in 1994, and is a co-owner of that company. They farm more than 1,000 acres, and she was also honored by the Farm Bureau in 2002 for her involvement with the California Sustainable Wine Growing Program. And then Mike Vandendresch, who's along with his brother Chris, who you're going to meet in the next panel. But Mike and Chris grew up and lived in France for their early years, and then their mom decided it's better to, she was American, it's better to raise their kids in the USA, so she implored her husband to agree, and he did, and they moved to the US. They bought land in Soda Canyon, and they helped to develop and farm that property with their dad. After high school, Mike went to Santa Rosa College. He spent a few years there in the viticultural program, and then returned to the vineyards of Burgundy and Provence to further his vineyard career. And Evo, forgot about Evo. My first memory of my first trip to the Napa Valley, the first guy I met was Charlie Wagner, and that was a treat, you know, to meet somebody in blue overalls and taste wine in a garage. But the next day, I was fortunate enough to be taken to Gurgich Hills, and I met Mike Gurgich in 1979, and there was just the one building at the time. The other two came along. But Mike and I have maintained that friendship for over 30 years now. I was doing a dinner at Mike's house for some friends. There were about 14 of us, and this goes back maybe, I'd say the early to mid 1990s?
86.
86, oh, well, long time ago. 1986, and we sat down to dinner at the Victorian House in Yountville, and Mike's nephew had just come into the country, I believe that week, and he introduced me to Evo, and then he turned to Evo and he says, now you serve the dinner, and don't forget to pour the wine. And so I've known Evo for a long time as well, but Evo is now fully in charge of winemaking and vineyard development and management for Gurgich Hills, and has done some amazing work in the biodynamic field and organic farming both. So thank you. So Garrett, why don't you kick it off and give a little background on yourself? Then we're going to go back and they'll talk about the wines, and then we'll taste the wines and ask some questions.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. I'm really grateful to be here. I moved now in the early 80s and bought some property pretty much for farming grapes. Now I'm about 6 years old. Our brand kind of originated in the Mooseville area, and most of our vineyards today are still out in that region of Napa Valley. We live out there too on the occasion, we do, of course. But we have currently about 30 acres for the family. My involvement with our family was planned purely in the vineyard. My father's an attorney, and we were commuting back and forth. He was in the Bay Area up to Maryland. He had a shipyard for it, so especially involved. He's always had a green thumb though, so we planted the first vineyard. We're off all the land. And like I said, it was on a very attractive riverbed, right? And grew up in that type of lifestyle. So 2002 was our first release for my dad's brand, just 100 cases of wine. That being said though, we've been making wine for, since I can remember, so it's really staying right on much down in our barn. But we currently bought my dad's winemaker, so we work with Paul and we do vineyard. I also farm with a lot of other small growers right now. I started a farming company when I was about halfway through college. When I came back, I actually was going to San Jose at the time, and it took me about 6 months to realize how special Napa was, and how horrible food in Sacramento was as well. So it was a very easy decision to come back and help the family brand. Because my father is trying to curtail his law practice, I don't really work so much with the wine side at all. That's why I started G1 Cellars with a high school buddy of mine. Currently, actually, I purchased it, I bought him out of the company, so to myself and a couple other guys that aren't in Napa, so kind of not only on the farming side of things, but on every other facet of the business. So, generally just a troublemaker. I think you guys know that already. So, I did bring a couple clients. I did bring a couple cabinets today, both of which are from the Monticello Road area. Monticello, by Jarvis, pretty much. One comes from a vineyard that my father and I planted, say, about 10 years ago. The other one comes directly across the street from the gentleman that really we first started buying wines for the G brand. So I make a very small lot of this wine. In fact, it's about 2 barrel production. Both are 2009s. And like I said, we've got different winemaking styles as well. I'm not the winemaker per se for our brand. I do have a consultant to help us out with that. So mine's pure Cabernet Sauvignon 100%, and then the other wine that we brought, the Father brand, is a blend of Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, and Tigre, a little splash of milk. So,
Thank you, Garrett. And also, when we get all done, I'll tell you now what the wines are. On your on your map, you have the wines numbered 1 through 7. 1 is G5 Wine Cellars Napa Cabernet 2009, and number 2 is the Enfeld Black Label Cabernet Sauvignon 2009. And which was the barrel sample?
It's not a barrel sample.
Oh, it's not, okay. Wine number 3 is the Gurgage Hills 2008 Estate Cabernet Sauvignon, and number 4 is the 2009 Gurgage Hills Estate Chardonnay. Number 5 is Julie Nord, Nord Estate Wines Jonquil Vineyard, Napa Valley Petit Syrah, number 8, 2008. And number 6 is White Rock Laureate Napa Valley Estate Cabernet 2007. And number 7 is White Rock Napa Valley Estate Claret 2007. So when we get it after their introduction to the wines, I'll go over this again with you. So if you want to make any notes. Ivo, how about you?
Thank you for a kind introduction. At that time, I could not absolutely speak English, and today I speak broken English, so I guess it's progress. I won't spend much time on history of Gurgage Hills. You're mostly familiar with Mike Gurgage and his achievements. Today, we still remain family-owned business. It's two partners, two families, Gurgage family and Hills family, and even Mr. Hills is the son of Justin is working vineyard. So truly, we all work. Today, Mike is 89, still very active, comes probably 3 times a week, loves people, loves to sell wine, even more than making wine, I guess. So today, the duties are divided between Violet, Mike's only daughter, and myself. She is in charge of promotion, sales, and I'm in charge of growing grapes and making wine. We always wanted to be a state winery, and we achieved that goal in 2003. Once we bought this 200 plus acres in American Canyon, virgin soil property that we planted, and when the property came to full production in 2003, we stopped buying grapes, and since then we are a state. We have 366 acres. We always wanted to be a state winery, and we achieved that goal in 2003. Once we bought this 200 plus acres in American Canyon, virgin soil property that we planted, and when the property came to full production in 2003, we stopped buying grapes, and since then we are a state. We have 366 acres from very south, Carneros American Canyon, to very north, Calistoga. So we are very proud to not only that we lease, but we own outright, and in these hard economical times, I'm so thankful with Mike's wisdom that Mike never took loan, everything was paid for cash, so we are debt free. A few years ago, I didn't care about that, but now I do. I see how hard it is to be independent. Besides owning our land, farming was how you farm was crucial for quality of grapes and soil. So we've been organic for many years, and then started biodynamic farming in 2003, and today we are certified organic and biodynamic. I'm not sure that my uncle agrees with biodynamic farming, and we kind of have discussions about that all the time, but I felt like he wanted to pull plug a few times, but when he saw my passion, he said, well, when I see your passion, I'll let you do it, even though I might not 100% believe in it. But we do believe in organic farming and natural farming, and we see all these replantings in Napa Valley, and we strongly believe this is the best way to kind of have healthy soil, healthy vineyards, and expressive wines. So 2 wines that we have, Chardonnay 2009 and Cabernet 2008, which are our current releases. Hopefully they illustrate our style, which has always been elegance and grace over power. Chardonnay is not malolactic, nothing wrong with malolactic in Chardonnay, but very Chardonnay, we have just good amount of acidity. This is about 697 grams. And we love acidity in all wines, especially Chardonnay. And so our wine, Chardonnay is floral, mineral. It's not buttery, it's not oaky. That the style is a style that Mike established and we maintain. And it hopefully better grapes, better flavors. It can be more pronounced every year. Cabernet 2008, I prefer this vintage over 07 because again, 07 was really ripe in face. This one is more sophisticated, more elegant, more structured. This wine can definitely age longer than 07, this vintage. The majority of the grapes are grown in Yountville, which is our jewel. That vineyard is 53 years old. And that's where I gave my inspiration for this kind of farming, with seeing these ancient wines, very healthy and producing best fruit. And we get 3 tons per hectare, so it's not it's a good yield. Blend 90% Cabernet and the rest a little bit Cab Franc, Merlot, but it's
Thanks, Ivo. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Julie, how would you like to kick it off?
Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the business side and how we work in our family to try to plan for succession planning. And I hope some of you may have your own brands or vineyards and want to pass it on to the family, because when you can make it work, it's a really fun opportunity to work in the family business. But over 70% of family businesses are sold or do not pass on to the second generation because they fail. So it is a lot of work to work together with the family. So my father started the Napa Valley Viticulture Program at the college in 1968 and started his first partnership vineyard in 1974. He went on to work the vineyards for the Maine Chandon and started Nord Vineyard Services in 1990. I have 2 sisters. We all had the opportunity to come into business. I'm the only one who came into the vineyard management side, but both my sisters are involved in different vineyard partnerships. But I do work with my husband, my father, and my brother-in-law. So there's a lot of dynamics that need to go on in family business. I think one of the most important things is to make good business decisions. A good business decision is generally a good decision for the family. You need to be successful and things run smoother. So for our family, it's kind of a turning point when we started annual retreats and actually got away from Napa for a couple of days and talked about our 5-year plan and goals. And we made sure to write this down, and that way everyone's kind of on the same page when going about their daily operations. And each year we review our 5-year plan and adjust it. And one year we took a long time kind of developing our tagline because we had to decide what we were about. We're about sustainability, we're about history, we're about great quality. So our tagline we use is sustaining Napa Valley's legacy of world-class wines. And we feel that really embodies what we do. And if everyone's thinking that way when they make a decision, we have good results. I think the 2 most valuable things my dad has given us is his reputation and opportunity. Again, if he buys or sells a vineyard, that's really a business decision, so it doesn't really matter if he's going up a huge estate. But if he gives us the opportunity to come to business ourselves, that's where we can learn the most. So for our family, we've done vineyard partnerships. When we identify a vineyard, all family members are offered to come in with their own money as a partner, and then if we need outside investors, we will then go to outside investors. And so it really works out well because then we're all vested in the vineyard, and the vineyard will have their meetings and everyone knows what's going on in the vineyard. So that way, when we inherit the vineyards at a later date, we're already invested in the vineyard, and so it's less likely to be sold. And then I think also, my dad has a great reputation, is very conservative with his money. So when we go into these partnerships, he has given his personal guarantee. And that has helped us get more money from the banks at lower prices, which keeps us competitive in this industry. The next thing I think is the transition to the next generation. And that starts as soon as the next generation is born. Our kids come out to the vineyard. I have a daughter, there's 5 grandkids my dad has. He's always given them pocket money to go do a little bit of work in the vineyard. So we have a partnership in Yountville, which Will is the youngest of 3 partners at 76. So, and everyone, another 2 in their 80s. But the neat thing is about 20 years ago, for the annual meetings, everyone designated one of the children. And so they come to Napa every year, and we have our business meeting, a nice dinner, and we're getting to know the second generation. And we've watched our kids grow up together. So it was really special last year when the first grandchild, one of the partners, turned 21, and she was invited in and could come taste the wines and learn about reading spreadsheets. So that's exciting because then they're vested in the vineyard too. So if it passes on to their kids, we already know them and we have a great basis to start a relationship from. So I really don't know if my daughter will remain in the vineyard business, but what my goal is to have the same great reputation my father did and make sure she has the opportunity to come in. And in the vineyard side, generally it's about the 30s, people decide that they want to come back into the business. So if you have a family business, be patient, let them go on their 20s, and wait till they're 30 and see if they don't want to come back in. And the wine. And so I brought the 2008 Petite Syrah. And I think Petite Syrah has to do with the whole history and legacy of Napa. Petite Syrah used to be one of the most popular varieties up through the 60s in Napa. And it kind of went out of fashion. And we started growing it back in 2002 at the recommendation of my dad, and we couldn't be happier. It takes a lot of management, a lot of thinning of the fruit to get to the concentration. And you also kind of have to wait until the tannin soften because Petite Syrahs can be so grippy. But we're really pleased this is really round, full mouth that has a real full lingering finish.
Thank you, Julie. And next, Mike. And we're going to be fortunate enough to meet Mike's brother, Chris, in the next seminar. So please, Mike, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm the vineyard manager of 36 acres of vines in the eastern hill of Napa, the Soda Canyon area, lower Soda Canyon area. Our parents found the White Rock property in 1977. Through their love of wine and the valley, my father's resolved to try his hand at farming. They began to plant and prep the old, what was an old polo ranch. Cabernet and Bordeaux and its Bordeaux style components, along with Chardonnay, seemed the best choice for the east side of the valley, considering the temperature zone, the soils, and the layout of the ranch. So my brother and sister and I followed in step, learning to appreciate the land and the vines. Planting the fields of 6-foot fava beans, staking out the future vineyard, tending to the young vines, running after the gondola, and helping with harvest. We had gradually planted the property in the early 80s, and after selling the fruit in the first few years, we began experimenting with making our own batches of wine, and in 1987, fulfilled a dream of our fathers to build a wine cave. Excuse me, it would have been difficult for me to do this without having written something down. I'm going to have to stay with the format. We produced our claret, a Bordeaux-style blend of Cabernet Merlot, Cab Franc, and Petit Verdot for the first 25 years. But soon after my brother Christopher took over as winemaker in the late 90s, we decided to take advantage of the multiple different flavor profiles caused by different exposures, elevation, soil and water availability to create 2 reds. We've kept the claret, which comes primarily from the lower elevations, and added a Cabernet Sauvignon, which comes from the drier, rockier upper hills of the property. Our Chardonnay, since the build beginning, is from 12 acres in the bottom of our small bowl of valley. My start as a vineyard manager began in '96 after a few years in the viticultural program at Santa Rosa, and a 2-year stint in France, dabbling with a few interests, including French language, wine, and working in vineyards. So the 2 wines that we brought are the 2007 that I have here are the 2007. Both 2007 are number 6, the Laureate, Cabernet Sauvignon, 95% Cabernet and 5% Merlot. Is 50% Cabernet and smaller percentages of the varietals of the blended varietals of Merlot compared to Cabernet Franc.
Start with numbers 1 and 2, which would be the G cellars. And Garrett, you want to just lead us in the tasting just for a couple of minutes, and then we'll go through all the wines, and then we'll have, questions and answers, and you can enjoy the wines in your glass.
Sure. As Alan said, this is our 2009 single barrel production Cabernet Sauvignon. We started a line of wine called single barrel production before we made this wine. This single barrel replaces 2 barrels of wine, but it's called wine. The vineyard is, like I said, it's located over kind of behind the Silver Rock Country Club on Monticello Road. And the wine I brought, Monaco, is directly across the street, pretty much against the mountainside, Monticello. And all the grapes are from that area. We have vineyard out there. It's about 24 acres. It's planted Cabernet, Verdot, Cabernet Sauvignon. We maybe planted a little bit of Malbec in there as well. So both 2009s, I just thought it'd be fun to show you kind of, different winemaking styles of these wines. Both are very young. If I had my brother's battle, we put it away and sell it for another 10 years before opening it, but being so small, our total production for G is always wavering around 1,500 cases. My dad is somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 these days. But being so small, we don't have that luxury of keeping our wines in a bottle and sell it before we open them. So, hope you enjoy it.
Trying to stay in the order of the list, and you guys all have a list of the wines being poured and space to write some notes for you. So, Evo, you want to take us to wines number 3 and 4?
I already spoke a bit about wines. Probably can start with Chardonnay. That Mike Village is mostly known for. As I said before, he created a style that we still follow. The only difference is I believe we have better grapes than ever before. We are totally in control of how we grow grapes. When making, let's stay with vineyard and picking. We believe in night picking, so most of the whites are picked with lights at night time, delivered early in the morning, maybe 55, 57 degrees. Then winemaking is fairly Burgundian minus Malartic, and then for stirring, once the wine is fermented, and also we use all natural yeast, and it's working totally fine. You hear kind of people being worried about natural yeast. I understand that if you use pesticides and stuff like that, systemics, we don't use any stuff like that, so we have a healthy population of yeast on the grapes, and we believe those yeast gives us more personality. And every year you're dealing with different yeast. Last year, actually, we did some tests with the ETS labs here, and they isolate our yeast. They have over 1,000 yeast in their catalog, including all these yeast that you can purchase from these vendors. And 15 out of 16 years were different, so it's a clear proof there is plenty of yeast around, and for me it's kind of a fascinating subject. So we continue to do that. Winemaking of Chardonnay, most of that is Chardonnay is fermented in barrels, kept in barrels for 9 months, and we have this interesting way of stirring barrels. Instead of opening bung and stirring once a week, which is helpful for texture wine, but also you can oxidize your wine. We have this system called Oxoline, and each barrel is put on 4 little wheels, and you can twist the whole barrel around. So once a week, we turn them upside down, and we get nice stirring by gravity without opening bung and oxidizing wines. So typically, the Chardonnay stays in barrels for 9 months. We are just about, actually Monday, we're going to bottle 2011 vintage. And then something that we are believing is bottle aging. So 2009, this is current release. We won't release 2010 before probably October, November. So minimum 14 months barrel aging for our Chardonnay before we release it. Cabernet, again, backbone vineyard is in Yountville, which we believe is incredible site for Cabernet. Yountville is right when you drive and you live here. There's still a little bit of breeze coming to Yountville, and then as soon as you turn to work, it gets a bit warmer. So this is like a bit cooler spot in Yountville. Beautiful, light, loamy soil, and then nothing but big pebbles, 3-4 feet down. Next to Domino's in Yountville. And so it's a perfect site for Cabernet, and this is our jewel. St. George rootstock blended on so-called Old England clone. So we get really very light crop due to small berries, very intense tannins, and that's one reason why we have to age it a bit longer. Up to 2 years in French oak, and then another year and a half in a barrel before we release it. Winemaking is, again, we don't go with crazy temperature, no cold salts. It's simple winemaking technique. We feel like when you harvest grapes, that's your potential, that's your quality, and through winemaking, you just hope to utilize fully that potential and not to destroy flavors. Through bad winemaking, you can either overpower flavors, what you got in grapes, or ruin them completely. You can make vinegar out of best grapes. That's short.
Thank you. Next would be Julie Lord and your Petit Syrah, please.
So this Petit Syrah, we kind of compare it to cooking a blueberry cobbler over a Dutch oven in a hickory campfire. So, this kind of puts you in place, and fortunately it's not blackberry cobbler, because that's what this vineyard reminds me of. They have the best blackberries up there in Bow Valley. Definitely smell the blueberries on it. There's just a little bit of flint on the nose. You get the toast from the oak that I think makes the campfire. And tasting through this last night before we came, we're kind of getting some of that leather earthiness coming through like you might in the Syrah. So we're going to be very excited to watch this wine age. This one? This is the Petit Syrah number 5. So Petit Syrah is the clusters start growing and you thin it, and then they get bigger and you thin it again, and they get bigger and you thin it again. Trying to keep the crop down is the biggest challenge. But it's also one of the neatest varieties to watch ripen, because it goes from a green to a blue to the deepest black purple you can see. So there's no red in between like the Cabernet does. And I've been accused more than once of drinking too much wine, because at 7 a.m. in the morning I'm eating Petit Syrah and it stains your teeth so quickly, which this wine will also. So good thing we have a few whites in between to clean out our palates. But I hope you enjoy.
Thank you very much, Julie. And now we'll finish up the explanation of this flight with Mike. Mike, yeah, Mike, was that? Yeah, okay.
The number 6 is our Laureate. The 95% Cabernet, 5% Merlot. Against the number 7, the Claret. Their provenance is different from Merlot Valley. The first Laureate from the tops of the hills, and the Claret from the bottoms of the hills. And so the dryness of the soil and the tops of the hills and the rock, the shallowness of the soil and lack of water lend to a richer, broader, chewier tannins in the Laureate, where the Claret, with a lot more water availability, the roots possibly, has a we use those grapes toward a Claret, which is meant to be tighter and more focused in Bordeaux style. Time-wise, are we good?
We're fine.
Good?
You've been on for another half hour.
Cabernet is 22 months in French oak, a third of which is new oak barrels. I guess one of the things we talk about our property is the fact that it's estate grown, all of it on the property, and it's vinted at the winery, which is just up the hill from the actual vineyards. So that, allowing, I guess that's where some of the generational handover comes in, where Christopher and I can work together within minutes of one another, exchanging ideas and comparing notes about wines from the past and how they might be in the future. That's certainly a positive, also obviously including our father Henry in the conversation. So then the claret is 26 months in French oak, also a third new barrels, 660 cases produced. Slightly higher alcohol. What was the blend on that? The claret. Did I have those right? I flipped those around. So I'm sorry. It's some of the details are different. The Cabernet number 6, the Laureate Cabernet is 95% Cabernet, 5% Merlot. The claret is 50% Cabernet, 50%. So it varies from year to year. And this year it was 50% Cabernet, 21% Cabernet Franc, 16 Merlot, 13 River. I guess because of the Cabernet being extremely rich that year, the fruit that we eased off some of the percentage of Cabernet and claret.
Thanks, Mike. So I hope you all got a picture of the 4 different wineries, the 4 different people, and their histories, along with a brief explanation of the wines that they've chosen. And all of the wines poured today are the wines that each participant chose to show you, so that they could be the best examples of what they're doing as a generational change within businesses. I'd like now to throw it open to see if anybody, you're pointing over there. No. You want to repeat it again louder, or I can do it quickly? What the gentleman is asking is something that many of us have known or observed as well, that the current style of winemaking lends itself toward more readily accessible, drinkable wines in the youth, as opposed to the older traditional style of making wines a bit hard and inaccessible in their youth, but to age longer. Did I paraphrase that? Okay. And so he's asking the panelists, and this is something I think each panelist could contribute to. What are you doing either to go with the new style, preserve the old style, or blend the 2 styles in your own pattern? Good. Ivo?
I believe there are 2 reasons for the rise in alcohol and softness in reds. The rise of these influential wine writers who just happen to like this kind of style wine, but also the U.S. palate. Most people here, they like sweetness, they don't like acid or tannins, just that. And over the last 15 years, more and more winemakers are over-ripening or field oxidizing their reds to get softer tannins and lower acidity. The result is also high alcohol. So you have this really rich reds that are supple, and as you said, you don't have to age them. In old days, nobody cared to drink best Bordeaux. You put them in the cellar for 10 years and then drink them. That was norm, not anymore. Nobody wants to wait. I read something like 95% wines that were purchased will be consumed in 44 hours. So why bother them? At Very Shows, we never liked high alcohol for a variety of reasons. We want people to drink more than one glass, and secondly, helps business. And secondly, we believe high alcohol obstructs precision. We want precision. We want you to see details in our wines, and so we always try to lower alcohol, and that's the biggest challenge in Napa Valley. It's not easy to grow Zinfandel and make it at 14 alcohol Cabernet here. So we, through direct farming and maybe stripping leaves a bit earlier, we try to reduce the methoxyparazines, the green bell pepper character. God forbid if you're caught with that, that's 70 points score. So we are trying to lessen those green bell pepper flavors, but without having to field oxidize or sit on kind of keep Cabernet in November. Because then you get these dead wines that are supple, soft, but without life. So that's our strategy is to have fully ripe tannins without high sugar, maintaining. We would love to have only 14 alcohol in Cabernet. That's our goal.
You know, this question is so apropos to everything going on in the change of generation, not only on the production and growing side, but also on the consumer side. I thank you for that question, because this will lead to some insightful information for all of us to enjoy and understand.
I just kind of want to add that I think maybe with the second generation, and we've grown up drinking older vintages, enjoying them, tasting through this panel, I see all these wines are going to age incredibly well, and they weren't made to drink right away. So it'll be really curious to see if that theme follows throughout the day.
Garrett?
Yeah, I think both.
You got to get closer to the mic.
Sorry, big fan of the microphone. No, I agree with both opinions here. We do pick a little bit later, sugars have to be right. The American palate is dictating, pretty much what we do. I'm not in the rating system. I try to veer away from that as much as possible for obvious reasons. My dad, of course, is, he goes that route. But, we pick for ripeness, of course, and balance in the vineyard, but, we use bricks and things like that that are under our control, but American palate does dictate certain things, so we use oak and whatnot and try to meet that need while not, bastardizing our own wines for what our direction is. So.
Thank you, Garrett. Mike?
Well, I think that we're trying to produce a wine that we can from our property, and not something that is geared towards what the critics like. I don't think that I think that's probably something we stand by, something we learned from our father, that maybe going with a following a trend that we kind of learn. Maybe we learned that following a trend. Trends sometimes they're up and down trends, and they can fail, and that we've stuck to what we can do with our property, and that's what it can produce. We don't try to doctor it to make anything else.
Thank you, Mike. Let's have this gentleman, then I'll get to. Let's do.
I'd like to ask Ivo, is Virgic family still making wine in Europe? How is that a part of the family?
After Croatia gained independence in 91, after 10 centuries of being under somebody, to celebrate, Mike went on a crazy trip there and bought the winery. Actually, was just building. The idea was to help Croatian winemakers make better wines. There is lots of interesting varieties. They are ancient, but winemaking was very poor. There was no technology. So we opened winery in '96. Winery is still operational. We produce a few thousand cases. One is Poship and one is Plavac Mali, which is not original Zinfandel, but very close to it. And actually, we just brought 1,000 cases here that we're going to start selling at the winery next month. So we are very proud of that heritage, and even more, I was in Zagreb 4 months ago. There was a big festival, Wine and Gourmet Festival, and it's amazing transformation. In 15 years, the quality is astounding. So these young winemakers went to Europe and learned techniques. There's more money invested in facilities, and I'm not saying that the best wines in the world, but very interesting wines, like our Porship white grape and wine. There's documents from all Romans, 2,600 years continuous growing on one variety in one island. So we all know that there's lots of romance in wine, so when you put that with a decent wine, you get extra pop for your buck.
And one other comment that maybe you are too shy to say, but when all of the controversy and the research was going on about where does Zinfandel come from, and it was the Agassiz heresy and all these other things, but where did the grape come from? And a lot of people were saying that it came from southern Italy in the Puglia region with Primitivo. And that was pretty much the conventional wisdom. And Carol Meredith got involved in research at UC Davis and such, and eventually tracked the lineage down. But before she did her research, it was Mike Grgic who said, you have to look at Plavic Mali in Croatia because that's the cousin of Zinfandel. And maybe Primitivo comes from Plavic Mali too, but that was Mike Grgic without any, it was just taste and sense. And this October, I'm pleased to conduct a wine cruise in the Mediterranean, where I will feature tastings and luncheons, dinners of the wines throughout the individual regions of the Mediterranean. We're going to be docking in Dubrovnik, and we're taking a bus trip to Vinja Grgic, and we're going to do a private tasting at Vinja Grgic, and we're also bringing back some of the wines on the boat to have for lunch. So Vinja Grgic is very much alive and well. You had a question? Okay.
If you're not producing wines to appeal to the palate of the reviewers or the wine writers, what challenges does that give you in terms of marketing the product?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
It becomes a root cross system. We are lucky that Mike had lots of achievements throughout his career, and we've been in business 35 years. So we have customers, which some of these people here have been with us since '77, and they know our style. So it's a plus and minus. Plus is that you have loyal consumers that love your product and stick with you. Minus is, it's very effective to get 95 points to sell everything overnight. But then, what if the style of that writer changes? And then you have to change. And also, everybody is chasing the same style, and then you are stuck with hundreds of wines that are all the same. And we like to have unique wines. So there's pluses and minuses. At the moment, we are happy what we do, and we sell everything that we produce.
What are your thoughts there?
Well, as I said, we try to veer away personally. G does from that system, because you can live and die by that sort of very quickly. In a brand that's only in 1,500 cases, that can be a very negative thing. But that being said, it's also difficult because those types of avenues create more business and continuous prices marketing. So it's a double-edged sword, and it's not to say we won't go that route in the future. But right now, it works well for us, being so small, to stick to our guns and just kind of avoid all of that at this point.
Thank you, Garrett. We're running a little short on time, but Julie, take a shot at this, and then Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if farming's in your family's blood, I really recommend someone marries a marketer.
Cheers to that.
Okay. Mike, do you have any further comments?
Maybe just because of some of the approachability of our wines, so we already have to release them a year and 2 years later than most people. That already is a difficulty. And I think that what Iwo was saying is that relying on your customer base, that there are people who appreciate the kind of wines that you make, is I think is probably the requirement.
Okay, is there a last question? Or, yes, go ahead.
I have a
question for Evo on biodynamic farming. And I understand that it, apart from being a philosophy, do you see any benefits in the final product, which is the wine, of course? Because I know it also affects the way you manage the vineyard. But okay, that's my question.
I don't know if you all heard it, but the gentleman asked Evo about biodynamic farming. He understands that there is a philosophy behind it, but does it have an effect on the final wine, and is it perceptible in the final wine that's being produced? Evo?
I would never claim that the biodynamic farming produces superior wines. You can have biodynamic farming and awful wines. For me, biodynamic farming is all about farming and having healthy soil that will grow healthy plants that won't be dying after 20 years. We all know that 50, 60-year-old vineyard always produces superior quality. So quality, superiority of wine comes from all vineyards, not some kind of tricks that you do in vineyards. So I'm sure I could go on for about 2-3 days about this, but we have to stop.
Thank you.
Well, you want to continue it at lunch? No. Anyway, thank you all very, very much for your interest and your involvement. A reminder, be sure to empty your glasses, rinse them, and then sit back in the same seat when you come back, okay? And we will reconvene. We'll start with the panel at 10:20, so take your break, and this will give the CIA staff time to fill your glasses. Thank you very much, and thanks to the panel. You guys are terrific.